I've been keeping an eye on HighGuard since it dropped, and the data is pretty wild to look at. It's a free-to-play hero shooter from Wildlight Entertainment that actually had a massive amount of hype right out the gate. If you look at the launch day numbers, it peaked over 382,000 viewers on Twitch, which is honestly insane for a new IP. People were curious to see if this was going to be the next big thing or just another face in the crowd. The problem is that honeymoon phase ended almost immediately, and the drop-off has been nothing short of a disaster. We're talking about a collapse down to 2,500 viewers in just a matter of 3 days after that peak. I've seen games lose momentum before, but this kind of drop usually suggests people didn't like what they saw. It feels like everyone tuned in to see the train wreck or the miracle, and then just left once they got the answer. I honestly think the Concord comparisons are doing a lot of damage to the game's reputation before it even had a chance to breathe. Ever since the game flopped back in 2024, it has become this weird curse that the internet attaches to any hero shooter that looks slightly generic. People are calling HighGuard the second coming of Concord, and that kind of branding is hard to shake off once it sticks. It sucks because from what I've seen, the actual gameplay isn't even that bad, but the internet loves a narrative. Steam hasn't been any kinder to the game either, with reports of review bombing happening pretty much from the first hour of launch. While some of that's just typical internet toxicity, the plummeted player count on Steam usually tells a more honest story than Twitch does. If the people who actually downloaded it for free aren't staying to play it, that's a way bigger red flag than a low viewership. It makes me wonder if the core loop is just lacking the hook that keeps you coming back for one more match. The performance issues are making things even worse, with people complaining that the game runs like total garbage. I saw a tweet from Ghost Supreme asking how a game with only 6 players can run worse than 64 player Battlefield match, and it's a valid point because you can't even get the technical side right for a smaller scale shooter. You're in deep trouble. When your Steam chart shows a massive cliff dive from nearly 100,000 players down to 60,000 in a few hours, performance is usually the culprit. Me personally, I think the hero shooter market is completely exhausted at this point, and developers need to realize that. We have so many options already, and unless a game brings something fundamentally revolutionary to the table, people are going to go back to what they know. HighGuard feels like a solid game, but solid doesn't even cut it when you're competing with games like Overwatch and Valorant. It feels like a game that was designed by a company to hit certain market trends rather than a passion project. I mean, there is a small glimmer of hope though, because being free to play gives it a massive advantage over something like Concord, which actually costs money. You can always jump back in for an update without feeling like you lose anything more than your hard drive space. Wildlight Entertainment has already put out a roadmap for 2026, and they seem committed to pushing through the negative press. If they can actually deliver on those 7 episodes they planned, maybe they can build a dedicated cult following. The February update is supposed to bring a new warden and a new map and even a rank mode, which is what the game really needs. Adding a mount is an interesting choice for a hero shooter, and it might be the kind of weird that the game needs to stand out. If the developers can ignore the noise and just focus on making the game feel unique, there's a path to come back here. We've seen games like No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk turn things around after a bad start, so it's not impossible. However, the current sentiment on social media is just so overwhelmingly negative that it's hard to stay optimistic. Every time I see a thread about HighGuard, just people mocking the player count and making the same tired jokes about it dying, it creates this self-fulfilling prophecy where new players don't want to join a dead game, even if the gameplay is actually fun. It's a toxic cycle that modern live service games have to fight through every single time they launch now. I feel bad for the devs at Wildlight because they've been out here defending the project, trying to stay positive amid the chaos. They keep saying the game development runs on optimism, and you have to kind of admire that level of grit. It's easy for us to sit back and look at graphs on Sully Gnome, but there are actually people behind those numbers. I hope they find a way to stabilize the population before the servers start feeling like a ghost town. Ultimately though, HighGuard is in a very dangerous spot where the next month will probably decide if it survives a year. If that February update doesn't bring back a significant chunk of players, that Concord label might just become a permanent label after all. I'm going to keep playing it for a bit just to see how the meta evolves, but I'm not holding my breath for a massive revival. I also think the timer of the launch was a bit of a mistake, given how much discourse is centered on live service fatigue right now. People are looking for reasons to hate these kind of games because they feel like they're being flooded with battle passes and skins. HighGuard just so happened to be the latest target in a much larger war against the current state of the industry. It's a shame because a few years ago this might have been received as a fun alternative. Looking at Sully Gnome charts again, the spike on launch day really shows that the marketing worked to some extent. You don't get 380,000 viewers by accident, you get them by having a presence at events like the Game Awards, but viewership is a vanity metric if it doesn't translate to a stable player base that actually enjoys the product. The community that is left seems pretty dedicated. They're mostly just arguing with people on Reddit, whether the game is dead or not. That's never a good sign for the health of a game's social circle when the main topic isn't the game itself. I want to see more clips of cool plays and strategies rather than just more screenshots of Steam DB charts. But until that number stops falling, that's going to be the only thing anyone talks about. I wonder if they should have stayed in a closed beta for a little longer to build up more like hype and a more core fan base. Launching as a finished product, or at least a version 1.0, puts a target on your back that's harder to defend. Our early access might have given it some like leeway from the failed launch narrative that's currently suffocating them, but now they have to dig themselves out of a hole. I mean, if you're someone who actually enjoys hero shooters, it might be worth checking out just because it's free. You have nothing to lose at that point. Don't let the internet tell you what to have fun with if you generally like the mechanics and the world of the game. But also, don't be surprised if the queue times start getting longer over time and over the next few weeks. It's a weird time to be a gamer when we spend more time looking at data than actually playing the games. I really hope Wildlight has a plan B for how to market this game once that initial launch failure noise dies down. They need to find a way to show people why HighGuard is different from the dozens of other shooters they already have installed. Maybe it's the mount system, or maybe it's some specific map interaction we haven't seen yet. Whatever it is, I need to put it front and center in the next trailer. It's crazy to think that being the last game announced at the 2025 Game Awards didn't give it more staying power. Usually the one last thing slot is reserved for something that's supposed to change the landscape, or at least be a massive hit. It feels like the hype was manufactured by the placement rather than being earned by the game's own merits. It just goes to show you that you can't buy long-term success with a good trailer in a primetime slot. I'm going to wrap this up by saying I don't want HighGuard to fail because more competition in the market is usually a good thing for players. I'm just being realistic about the situation based on the data we're seeing right now. It's a tough world for new shooters, and HighGuard is currently fighting an uphill battle. If you played the game, let me know what you think about the warders and if you think the game is actually solid. I'm interested to hear from people who are actually in matches rather than just looking at charts like I am. Maybe there's a perspective that I'm missing that makes the game look much better than what it is. Either way, it's going to be a very interesting year for Wildlight Entertainment. I'll keep you guys updated if anything major changes or if the February update actually ends up being a game changer. For now, just know the case study and how volatile the modern gaming market can be. One day you're the talk of the town with 380,000 viewers, and 3 days later you're a meme about a dead game. But let me know what you guys think. It's your boy Memories. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you boys next time. Peace.